And you're listening to AIM Ocala Live, WOCA, The Source, 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, 7 minutes past the top of the 8 o'clock hour. As we got our segment now, we've got Galen on the phone, Life South Community Blood Centers. Good morning, Galen. How you doing today, partner?
Hey, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's Thursday. We're downhill towards the end of the week, and it's Mother's Day on Sunday, partner. We're getting close to that, and we were just talking a little bit off air there of I wonder what the expectations are here of what the county's looking to do, county commission, considering we've reached out to Governor DeSantis about, hey, let us. Our jurisdiction, let us run our community the way we see fit, considering our numbers are low. And, Mother's Day, big restaurant day when you think about it, holiday for people to go out and eat, but now we're still only talking 25% occupancy and stuff. It makes you wonder what next week's going to hold, but at the same time, as we're rolling through this week, we've got some beautiful weather for the next couple of days, so that's something to look forward to. And we're going to have County Commission on today, and we're going to see where their mindset is. So hopefully we can find out some new information. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the information is the people in power are really flexing their muscles. DeSantis has made no inclination as to what he's opening. The lady in Dallas who opened up her salon and was thrown in jail.
Yeah, thrown in jail.
7 days and fined $7,000.
Yeah.
When you put that into perspective of how few people are thrown into jail, the part that bothered me, it was just I heard the whole proceeding and the judges just calling her selfish and this. Right. How dare you, break my law kind of a thing. That I was flabbergasted by the sheer power hungry that some of these people have. And we were talking off air about the video of one of the people who work for the NIH talking about about the virus and what the true story was and how quickly it was taken down. Again, I've alluded to the rabbit hole before, but just Google University of Pittsburgh researcher who was very close to making a significant impact on a vaccination for COVID. She sends this report out, and then the same day, murder-suicide.
Yep.
Same day.
Yep.
Same day, murder-suicide, and again, I think every generation has a conspiracy. Every 20 years or so, there's a massive conspiracy that people have opinions on. And to me, it goes way back. But Pearl Harbor, we knew it was coming. It was our way of getting into the war. We let it happen, right? JFK, person in the grassy knoll. 9/11, there's a lot of them out there, and I believe that this will be this generation's conspiracy theory.
Sure.
I believe that this generation will look back on it and say it was made in a lab. The World Health Organization was behind it. Fauci and Dr. Brexler, I forget her name all the time, was part of it with her connection with the daughter and their connection to that lab. I think people are going to go back and you're going to hear documentaries written about this and books written about all the dark web connections to this virus and to the power elite. I think it'll be this generation's big conspiracy.
Now, you mentioned, for those listening who don't know, when we mentioned Dallas, her name was Shelley Luther, and she was a salon owner that she's shown in a video. She pretty much ripped up the whole stay-at-home kind of order thing with her business and said, no, I'm opening. And like we said, was jailed for it. As of now, the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, had called for her immediate release. But it's just fascinating. Like you said, it's another one of those cases where it's such a knee-jerk reaction to somebody who's pretty much just saying, hey, I have freedom, I have rights. I'm going to do what I need to do to survive in a dire straight situation of saying I need to make a living. I have a business that allows me to do that. You can't say I can't keep it closed. I'm going to do what I need to do. And jailed for it.
Well, and I keep going back to one thing. One, her employees didn't have to go back.
No.
If they didn't want to. She wasn't forcing them back.
No, and that would
people who wanted to get their hair cut didn't have to go in there.
No.
But yet, and how if you're a police officer and you are there to defend the Constitution and to protect your citizenry, how do you believe that pulling this woman and citing this citation and giving her this ticket, how do you believe that this is somehow for the betterment of my society?
Right. How is it justifiable to say you're just...
But it's so much worse than that.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts and Maryland and in New Jersey and all these cities, if you don't wear a mask, they're writing you a $300 ticket. How is that possible? And how is this even? I mean, if you don't think that's brown codish, if you don't think this is eerily like 1984, and in Nazi Germany, people asking you for your papers, you're crazy. I'm sorry. I get it. People believe that you're somehow protected by a mask when much of the science says you're not.
Yeah.
I've seen so many of these little pictures that, oh, look at this. Oh, this explains everything. No, it's propaganda.
Yeah.
So again, people are just fighting back, and if you enforce unethical and immoral law, that makes you wrong. I'm sorry. As a police officer, I think you should step back and say, what am I doing? Why would I enforce this law that I think is wrong? Now, maybe somebody else comes up and enforces it, fine. But I hope people start, these people in power who have the ability to take away your freedom and lock you up for 7 days for trying to feed your children and the people who work for you's children. I was reading a report. I'll be in the studio tomorrow for you because I think you're off, me, Dan, and Shane. And I was looking, I was just like, okay.
That bugs me a little bit because I want Dan to do it by himself to feel what I have to deal with every day.
You got to remember, Dan's done it by himself many times.
True.
So I was reading a report. So I think it's 1,300 people have died from COVID in Florida, right?
Right.
So more people have committed suicide in the same time frame. Depending on when you go back, if you go back to October, more people have committed suicide than have died from COVID. More people have died from drug overdose than have died from COVID.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a much bigger factor and a much bigger impact on our society than somebody who dies who's over the age of, most people, the average age is 75, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, when somebody commits suicide or dies of a drug overdose, that tears the fabric of our society apart.
Yeah.
Right? That's why it's so terrible. It's for the people who are left behind trying to answer questions of why.
Yeah.
And so if we were to pour the same amount of effort and this trillions of dollars that we did into COVID as we did into overdose and suicide, maybe we could make a dent in it. Maybe we could really make a difference with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And we know that this social distancing is exacerbating it because calls into these suicide hotlines are at record highs. They're saying that they're higher than they're double what they are around the Christmas holidays, which are incredibly stressful for some individuals. So why are we putting our society at risk for this? I will not be, and I've said this from day one. I think the cure is far worse than the virus itself.
Yeah, Absolutely. With that, just to throw a moment there to the sponsors of this segment, we want to give a shout out to Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center. I'd like to thank Palm Garden Health and Rehabilitation Center, located at 2700 Southwest 34th Street, where they offer skilled nursing, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. And if you have any questions on how they're handling COVID-19 and what their expectations are, as we've got a new ad that we're plugging about some of the information that's coming through. But if you'd like to talk to somebody, they say please give them a call, 352-854-6262. That's 854-6262 on how they're handling and dealing with COVID-19. Also, too, to Penn Flooring. Shout out to Penn Flooring for hanging in there with us. Full-service flooring company dedicated to finding the best solution for your flooring needs, experience in both the commercial and residential fields. 1201 Southwest 17th Street in Ocala, 352-351-3420. That's 351-3420. So special thanks to them. And, Galen, it's interesting just to touch on, like you mentioned with the a little bit of the conspiracy concepts. There's new articles that have come up when you mentioned Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's researcher, the slaying of a University of Pittsburgh Medical School COVID-19 researcher was killed Saturday. That's what we were discussing. And the new articles come out kind of like immediately throwing it out there that, we found zero evidence that this tragic event has anything to do with the employment at the University of Pittsburgh, for any conduct of the University of Pittsburgh having to deal with the ideas of what was going on with the research done for COVID-19. And right there, it's like that feeling of it just doesn't feel right? It doesn't feel good. Now, considering, for those who may not know, Mr. Lau, I think you say it, Liu, was a native of China who was shot multiple times and found by his wife inside their townhouse of Elm Court. And police believe that Mr. Gu, 46 of Franklin Park, fatally shot him and then got in his car, parked nearby, and then killed himself. And again, it's that weird sidestep to the information that, well, we got to put out another article. People are thinking that they're tied to it with the research. It's a little fascinating. I think you're right. I think every decade has, or like every 20 years has their own little conspiracy theory there to deal with as such. Yeah. I don't know. People ask me all the time, I think I mentioned it yesterday, in the sense of when I was graduating high school there, my senior year is when September 11th happened. And, it was tumultuous in itself, and then coming out of it, and then just traveling that summer, how different things were, everybody experiencing what then was, again, kind of an illogical onslaught of what we considered to be security with TSA and what was necessary, they assumed, for us to be safe, quote, safe, and how kind of, like we said, illogical that was, and then things turn, to be a little bit better as time moves on. But then as time moves on, that's when some more of those questions where you start to see holes, you start to see gaps where it's like, this doesn't make sense. I get asked about September 11th all the time because I'm a pilot. And they say, well, what do you think, happened? And not that I want to take anything away from the events that took place or anything like that. I just always thought, now that I'm in aviation, I just always thought it was so incredible that the buildings themselves were struck with the planes so right on the money. Both of them, not clipped a wing. And we're talking guys that we've always heard through the grapevine that were trained in Florida, that didn't want to land the airplanes. They just wanted to solo fly them by themselves, not worrying about landing. And after having been a flight instructor for 6 years, having that idea about somebody taking an aircraft that large and on that type of trajectory and doing what they did, it raises a lot of questions, that's all. So it brings some of that to the conversation, so to speak. So there's that 20 years ago. Now here we are. There's a lot of questions because there's a lot of convolution. I'm bringing this up because there was a video that was put up yesterday on social media. It was throughout Facebook. A lot of people had shared it, but a lot of people were tagging that there was mention of it getting taken down at some point. What it was a 20-minute video on the concepts of what they consider to be called plandemic. Bottom line was, this was a documentary for about 20 minutes long about Dr. Judy Mikovits. And right about, I think it was about 1 p.m. or something like that, YouTube took it down, and there were some other places that were airing the video that they ended up taking it down and stuff like that. I guess there was a big conflict of agreements or rights for what YouTube was publishing with it. But it's a fascinating perspective on where this virus came from, her information, and not to mention what she's been through. But, of course, always taking everything with a grain of salt. But just the information that comes from it, how it lines up, so to speak. And last night I was trying to get back to it because I didn't have time in the early afternoon to watch it. So I wanted to watch it yesterday evening. And it took a while to dig to find it. I watched it. I'm still letting it percolate. I don't know really what to take from it. I mentioned it to you, Galen, if you had seen it. I know you had said you hadn't seen it yet. But I'm wondering for the listeners out there if they had seen this and if that changed their opinions on the virus or anything like it. After having watched that video and then seeing an article today on USA Today about the antibody test, that's what I wanted to ask you about for what you guys do, Life South Community Blood Centers. We've been talking a lot this past week and a half about, donating platelets, the expectations of maybe donating plasma and, of course, blood, and then the idea of the antibodies. And the big thing there is not just everybody can go get the test. That makes sense. But you're saying, too, Galen, I know you mentioned this, the big part of that was you guys truly wanted people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and gotten through it to get in there and test. Not just the people that think they may have had it back in January and want to take the test. Is there anything wrong with that, though, if you think maybe you had it and you want to get the test?
Well, no, we're just trying to put in place a system where we can handle that kind of massive outreach. I'm getting calls constantly saying, hey, I want to get tested for the antibodies. And the blood center isn't built for that. Right? We're not built for that kind of volume. We cannot, and nor I don't think we have the responsibility to test the whole community.
Yeah.
So, there are doctor's offices where you can go and get it done. And I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, you started with 9/11.
Yeah, I know.
Went through the doctor and ended up at antibodies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave the whole 9/11 thing out there. I mean, they've proven that those guys spent thousands of hours practicing on a simulator, taking the jet right into the tower. So that part isn't nearly as difficult as you made it sound, apparently. But I mean, if you want to do the antibodies and you think you qualified, we do offer a survey online that you can take. You do need to have a positive test result, and if you have a positive test result, then we can and you're 21 days clean, or free or past that positive test result, then you can come in and donate.
Is that the key? You said they're 21 days.
We can test the antibodies. Well, the key is that you tested positive.
Gotcha.
And that you have a positive test result.
Gotcha.
So we're doing it on a very limited basis for people that have the virus or have the antibodies, and we're reaching out to their connected family members, and people who are close to them and asking them to come out and do it. And that's why we're growing our convalescent plasma units and donors. So we just can't handle much more.
Right. On a lighter note, just to get to the distraction with the NFL, the expectations of the 2020 schedule is expected to be released tonight for teams, and I guess that's something to look forward to. I guess to see what teams play who. And it's interesting to see who Tampa Bay will play. Obviously, they'll play who is in their division, but to see who those outside games are.
They already know who they're playing.
Yeah.
They already know the I don't remember off the top of the head. They already know what teams are playing in the AFC, and they already know what teams are playing in what division they're playing. They just
Yeah.
don't know the schedule.
The schedule,
So,
the days in which they'll
I think
play.
that means absolutely not. So I won't even pay attention.
Do you see after that gets released? Do you see a huge influx in what will be bought for tickets for the Buccaneers come tomorrow and this weekend?
No, I think they've suspended all ticket sales. I think you
did they?
can buy the right to buy them, but I don't think you can actually buy the ticket yet because, well,
Yeah, you don't know.
heck knows. Again, this is part of what they want. They love this. They if and more and more, I believe that the government just wants to be bigger and bigger and control more and more aspects of our life. I remember after 9/11 when everybody's like, "Oh, the government's got to protect us." I'm like, "No, they don't." And whether that was an act of war, and they so overreached their powers, right? That was 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And they so expanded their power in our life where they could monitor everything we do. They could now detain us forever. Literally, they could detain you without habeas corpus forever under the guise of terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the people are like, hey, that sounds like a pretty good idea. I'm not a bad person. They're not going to come after me because I haven't done anything wrong. And now here we are 20 years later. They're saying, we're going to come after you because you're not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Or we're going to come after you because, well, you're trying to run your business. And we don't like nail salons and hair salons and tattoo parlors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at. It just, what's next is the environmentalists are going to say, hey, you can't operate your business because it makes me unsafe because, you operate a small motor that's not electric. It's got these fumes coming out of it. So you're not allowed to cut my yard unless it's an electric vehicle or it's my safety that's at risk. You wouldn't want to risk my safety and the people who live, 3 miles away. You wouldn't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
That's what this is all a setup for, man. More control, more power.
There you go. As we come to the bottom,
Right back at some point.
as we come to the bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, one thing I didn't get to, buddy, a couple days ago, but I wanted to shout out the winningest coach in NFL history there, Don Shula, had passed away, 90 years old. Real quick before we go, do you see any coach ever breaking that record of 328 wins?
Oh, he was a really, he's a good coach. He's not probably in the top 5 in the NFL. He was an accumulator. He had, 3 good years because they took because of the way they could acquire players. He was never good after that. He had arguably a top 5 quarterback and the best quarterback of his generation in Dan Marino, and couldn't do anything with him. So, I'm not one of these guys who thinks Don Shula is on like the Mount Rushmore of NFL coaches. I just don't. I don't think he did much for the game. The last 20 years he was a coach.
Interesting. Well, Galen, we appreciate it, buddy. You have a great weekend, my friend. I heard you in the studio tomorrow. Enjoy it. You guys have a good time, and thanks for covering so I can take care of some business.
All right, man.
You got it, buddy. Later.
Good, man. All right. Have a good weekend. Bye, y'all.
Bye. WOCA back after this.
China has an obligation to open up and be transparent.
Fox is Trey Yingst. America's listening to Fox News.